Welcome to the Desperately Seeking Self podcast, the show that helps you up your confidence game so you stop settling for less than you deserve. I'm your host, Brooke Collins, speaker, life coach, women's empowerment enthusiast, and the best friend you never knew you needed. Are you ready? Let's get started. Everybody, I am super excited to have Jane Enright here on the Desperately Seeking Self podcast. We were introduced through a mutual connection, and am I ever glad that I came across her path, because she is an author of the book Butter Side Up, and she has an incredible website, My Super Awesome Life, and her story of resilience and dealing with unexpected change and loving yourself through all of those things and deciding the steps that you need to take towards embracing the change so that you can continue to love yourself and go forward with confidence and focus on the future and let go of the past and what was and stepping into what is. Because your thing is, unexpected change can occur rapidly at any time. I mean, for
Oh yeah. Yeah. COVID's a perfect example of that. Who knew, right? I always say, put up your hand if you don't know what the next 5 minutes is going to bring, right? We don't know. We don't know. Never in the history of the world have we experienced such massive, rapid, unexpected change on a global scale. So we're all, the bad news is that yes, COVID has come and COVID is here to stay in some shape or form. But the good news is that we're all in this together and we can develop strategies to help not only ourselves, but help each other.
Awesome. Yeah, I agree. And so I'm glad that you're here. Thank you for coming on. I'm ready to just want to pick your brain for some awesome ways to cultivate change, but focus on loving yourself and gaining confidence and momentum as you go through those things. Because for me, anytime I've dealt with a life-changing event, I find I'm so splattered on the ground that my confidence, it takes me so long to get back up again. So to be able to move and gain more confidence from these things is just incredible. And you've got a bunch of theories. So tell us about yourself. Let's hear your story. Just a small, I know we're focusing on the future, but just a small little clip of who you are and how this all came to be for you.
Well, thank you. Thank you for that kind introduction. Thank you for having me. It's great to be here. So basically, I like to say stuff with 4 letters ending in a T happens to all of us. But it's how you handle it that matters. My stuff, it's stuff, right? Everybody has their stuff. And I know you've had your journey. All of our journeys are different and you've had yours too. But my journey began in 2017. And I had 3 unexpected, very unusual events filled with a lot of trauma and drama happened to me in quick succession within 12 months. First, I got hit in the head with a volleyball, not like a little tap, and it changed it was a life-altering head injury. I lost, couldn't talk properly, lost part of my hearing, my speech. I had to work with a speech pathologist for 8 or 9 months to get myself back. And it really was a life-changing event because I used to be a facilitator. I used to be a strategic planner. And that's how I made my living. I made my living talking to people and following conversations. Couldn't do it. So had this devastating personal injury. And I was just getting back into the groove when my partner at the time, I was engaged to be married. We lived together. And he had his own catastrophic brain injury. He had a car accident where he hit his head on the steering wheel. And unbeknownst to us, he had a small bleed in his brain. And he had a subsequent fall the next day in the garage. And he was in the hospital for 76 days. And, when he woke up, at some points, we didn't know what was going to happen. I didn't know what was going to happen to him. And when he woke up after 10 days out of his semi-coma, he looked at me, he said, I can't remember who anyone is here, but you're the nicest and the prettiest. Everyone's so nice. And I realized that he didn't know who he was. He didn't know who I was.
Yeah.
He didn't remember meeting me. He didn't remember becoming engaged. He didn't remember any parts of our life together. He didn't know how we met. Didn't know anything. So that's sudden, rapid, unexpected change. Poof, your whole life.
Yeah.
Boom. So I was taking care of myself and now I had to advocate for him. So it's holy smokes, how are we going to do this?
Yeah.
And then you think, that would be enough, but things happen in threes. So it was such that, his injuries were such that it made it difficult to be the same. Everything changed. And when he was being released from hospital, he had to get care because he couldn't, take care of himself. And I couldn't
Right.
take care of him either the way he needed to be taken care of. So he would recover as much as he could. My dear friend of 40 years, she got diagnosed with stage 4 pancreatic cancer. And I remember where I was sitting, when I got the news. I'm sure there's a lot of your listeners out there who've been through very similar situations that I'm talking about. And unfortunately, she didn't have a lot of time, and she passed away in 3 weeks.
Oh my God.
So when I got the news and I finally got to speak with her, because I'd been in the hospital, I spent over 100 days in hospitals helping people and advocating for people that I loved and cared about. And when I got the news from her, she said, "Would you come and help me?" And I said, I will. And that's the thing now with COVID. There's a lot of hard, sad things happening.
Mhm.
And a lot of us are going to have to dig deep, to try and navigate change. So even though I'm talking very calmly to you, people always say, "Well, how could you be so positive? My gosh, your whole life, it just changed." And it did, and it has. But I'm also a big believer in things happen for a reason. Like you've been on your own journey. We all go on our own journey, and taking something bad and making something good happen is what it's all about. So that's why I love you and your positive message and your
Oh,
message of positivity. So that's me in a nutshell. So listen, I'd always say I don't have a PhD, but I've got a DPE, a doctorate of personal experience. So
yeah,
a lot of
me
other
too. Me
people
too.
have it
I
too.
love that. I'm going to steal that.
You can borrow it, use it. So that's me in a nutshell. But you know what? I said, look at the end of all this, I said to myself, I'm tired of hard and sad. I'm not doing this anymore. I want a super awesome life. And that's when the idea train got going in my brain. I had accepted what had happened to me, and it gave me a more flexible mindset so that I could move forward, not backward, and start my superawesomelife.com and ultimately write Butter Side Up. And I don't think any of that would have happened if all this other stuff didn't happen to me.
Well, yeah, and I think for anyone who's like doesn't understand, like how can you be so calm and rational? Well, when you process what's happened and you accept the way things are, and start showing you having a little gratitude for where you're at because you move the needle a little
Yes,
bit each day,
you
you've
do.
through the thick of it, and now you've gotten on over the hump, and you're like, here, I'm going to do this because I went through this. So we all come out stronger through the hard stuff. I mean, it's not fun. Nobody wants to go
No, no. And
through
this was
those.
some hard, tough stuff. And you've been on your own journey, and I know you've had lots of wonderful guests on your show. And that's what I like. I mean, I think it's important to share, especially during uncertain times. The first thing I always like to tell people when they talk about, unplanned change is, um, there actually is two different kinds of change. There's both planned and unplanned. And I learned that after I had all this stuff happen. So unplanned change is basically stuff you don't expect.
Mhm.
It's an unexpected event or the consequence of something else, like a pandemic, for example,
Yeah, yeah.
or a divorce that you didn't expect, or your child maybe having an issue, a problem, something like that. Plan change is something that you consciously want to happen, like getting your driver's license, or going back to school, or getting married, or having children, or laying off the pizza and bulking up on the kale salads so you can get healthy.
Yeah.
There really is two different kinds of change. But after you've been through a lot of unplanned change is when that's when the acceptance part comes in. That's what worked for me. I always say I'm not an expert, but this is what worked for me. Just accepting that I didn't want to be somewhere where I was. I didn't want that life filled with brimming with trauma and drama anymore. I wanted to move forward, not backward. So I initiated plan change by accepting that all of these things had happened. And that's often difficult to do. And sometimes that takes that time. It doesn't mean you have to be happy about stuff like how a
Right.
pandemic messed up your life. Like, oh my, we always say, oh, OMG, like, what's next? And that's really us trying to help ourselves, right? But
Yeah.
the first step is really that acceptance and saying, okay, either I don't want to be where I am and I've got to make some changes in my life, or accepting that, wow, I can't believe that happened, but it happened, because it moves you towards a more flexible mindset. It moves you to the more positive end of the spectrum, and it opens your mind to wonderful ideas about what could happen in your life instead of what is happening in your life.
Do you find that when you're working with people, and I know you work with a very, you have your website, you're an author, you're like, you do all these things, you interact with people all the time. Um, do you think that when you get like to that place where it's making the decision to change and making the decision to take a step forward and like the acceptance portion,
Mhm.
that that's something that people are able to come to with their own endurance and strength, or do you think most people need an external source to kind of point that out?
Oh, I think it depends on who you are at the time. I definitely think you need a support system. And that's why I love your show, is because, you talk about being the best friend. As we go through changes in our life, our friends change as well. And sometimes those friends can be good for us, and sometimes those support systems and friendships and family can be not so good for us.
Yeah.
There's lots of people sometimes that have to say goodbye to either a partner or an addiction or a friend, or a family member, in order to heal and move forward and backward. There's also people, sometimes we have to say hello to a support system
Yeah.
in our life. And you've done a great job about talking about addiction and one day at a time, right? You can't do that on your own. It's huge, right? And
Yeah.
for me, I was fortunate enough that I had some skills in the tools in the toolkit that I'd use professionally. As I said, I used to be a strategic planner. So I was helping often people that I was working with businesses. And this is what struck me when I started to want to write and help others, is that in business, oftentimes we look at situations from the outside in, not the inside out. We, very successful business leaders use outside in thinking all the time. They think about their customers. They think about having a more flexible mindset. They think about being receptive to market changes like COVID. Say, for example, if you're a retail store, you say, holy smokes, what am I going to do? I can't open all the time. I'm going to have to go online. Or, geez, I used to make clothes. I'm going to make masks now. Very, very quick to pivot, right? However, in our personal life, most people aren't like that. How many people have you heard say, I hate change?
Oh, yeah.
That's because most people do, right? And it's the fear of what's next, right? Like the OMG. So for me, OMG is not, oh my God, or oh my gosh. It starts with outside in thinking. Outside, looking at your situation from the outside in, not the inside out, is looking at it as an observer. And Michael Singer talks about this in The Untethered Soul, which is a fascinating book. It changed my life. And it really is, it's looking at your life and saying, if I was talking to my friend right now about what was going on, what would they say? Right? It's being in the audience instead of being in the play. And it's big picture thinking. It helps us not get caught in the weeds, right? Whether that's advocating for a loved one who's had an illness like COVID, advocating for ourselves in a situation where we need to get some positivity in our life, or our self-love, and saying, maybe I'm being hard on myself, because sometimes we're our own worst enemy. So that outside in thinking is really what saved me. And it's like, you know what? I'm treating this situation. When C was in the hospital, I said, this is project memory. I'm going to do everything possible. I'm going to look at the strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and challenges of the situation like a project, and I'm going to go through the list. Now, that may sound very hard and cold, but that kept me out of fear-based thinking and moving into mindfulness, which is the M for me. We talk about that mindfulness one day at a time. So it's like AA. I love that principle. One day at a time. One day at a time.
Me too.
And so mindfulness what struck me about mindfulness when I started doing research about this is oftentimes, we spend billions of dollars on trying to be mindful. We're meditating, we're doing yoga, we're, taking classes, we're reading books, we're doing all kinds of stuff. But most people don't understand why it's important to be present. And most people don't understand that mindfulness is such an important tool when you're trying to go through successfully navigate unplanned change. So mindfulness, staying in the present, helps us keep out of depression about the past, the depression about woulda, coulda, shoulda. You know what? If I'd only done this, geez, you know what? If I'd only done this, right? Or if he'd only done this or she'd only done this, it keeps us out of that mindset. Mindfulness also keeps us out of fear, the future and what could happen or what might not happen. It's like, okay, today, this is my goal. Either I'm not, and I'm sure you went through this when you were going through your 12-step program. You talk about it.
Oh yeah, yeah, no, without a doubt. And it's gets you out of yourself, basically. So outside in, right? Just looking at it from a different perspective, being able to like not be so self-consumed. I think.
That out of your head. Exactly. Sometimes we're our own worst enemy. So outside in thinking helps us sort of find the route or plan the route. Mindfulness helps us stay in the present and keeps us on the journey, stay on the path and stay on track. And gratitude, which is the G in OMG for me, really illuminates the path. Practicing gratitude. I've always been a very grateful person and I've always been a very positive person. But when I was going through my most terrible year, I started really consciously practicing gratitude every day. And as a result, I focused on what I did have rather than what I didn't have. And that, as a society, we tend to do that. We tend to focus on what we don't have rather than what we do have. And we often look for other people to change or situations to change. But really, all we can control is we can control ourselves.
Yeah.
Right?
It's a hard lesson to learn, but yes. Yeah.
It's a very hard lesson to learn. But it's actually been proven. Like there's been a lot of really great information that's come out from Robert Emmons at the University of California at Berkeley. He studied gratitude extensively, and it not only helps us be more resilient, it also helps us it brightens our mood. It keeps us in the positive. And it also is been scientifically proven that we bounce back and develop more coping mechanisms when we're actively practicing gratitude. So, for example, when my friend passed away, and I know a lot of people right now during COVID are going through a lot of loss, a lot of grief, a lot of unexpected loss and grief. I really had to dig deep. After two catastrophic events in my life and a third one, I thought, why is this happening? Why is this happening now? Why would something so awful and terrible happen right now? And I don't know why that something so awful and terrible happened then, but all I could focus on, instead of thinking about what I was losing, I thought, wow, I had a best friend for 40 years. A lot of people, that's longer than most marriages.
Yeah.
A lot of people don't have that. I had a super awesome, wonderful time with her. And I got the call at the end that no one wants to get, but everyone's honored to get and grateful to get. She asked me to spend her last days with her. I was so grateful for that. And you know what? I think that was when I pulled this whole thing together. I didn't consciously, when I was going through all this, stuff, say OMG, OMG, right? But when I had time to process it afterwards, it was suddenly like, oh, shoot, look what I was doing. There you go. Yeah. So I think a lot of us have these tools in the toolkit, but we don't have, life is not a textbook. When you're going through all this trauma and drama, like a pandemic, and things are happening quite quickly, maybe you lost your job or you're losing something in your life that's very near and dear to you. You need to think quick on your feet. So that's what this OMG process for me was all about. And that's why I decided to share it with other people, because I just thought it makes sense.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, and it does. So I'm just going to back up a little bit because I actually got like tears in my eyes when you were talking about your best friend, because I think it's so hard today. The relationships that we have are so different than the ones, like the way they form and the way you engage with people is so different than the way it was even when I was growing up. And
Yes.
it's to have a real soul sister, like a friend that you for 40 years. I mean, most people can't really even wrap their minds around that. That's like, people who are there for you through thick and thin till the end,
Yeah.
and um, to have, I think loves of our lives come in more forms than just your spouse, right? Like the multiple ways of loves that we have in our lives. And I certainly, a best girlfriend, a soul sister is one of the most important. If you're lucky enough to have that type of relationship,
Mhm.
it is an honor. And I think shifting your thoughts to gratitude about her wanting you there for the last days, because as hard as it was for you,
Mhm.
she needed you and she wanted you to be there.
Mhm.
And how beautiful is that? And
Yeah.
lots of people could look at that like, oh, I can't do this, and make it all about themselves, right? In that moment. And
Yes.
then they sit on that train later, like, woulda, coulda, shoulda. I should have gone. I should have,
Yes.
I think being able to look at it from the place that you are is incredible. And I think I think it's a unique perspective on death that not a lot of people take. I think you have to go through losing a few people to understand how privileged it is to sit at a hospice bed with someone dying. It's like a very surreal situation when you get to actually say what you want to say
Yes.
goodbye.
Yeah.
And it's like,
Yeah. That's that. Yeah. And I know you've shared something about your journey, and that's the biggest piece of advice I can give to people now during COVID, when they're losing loved ones and it seems like the end of the world. And for some of us at that time, it is. It's the end of it's an end of a chapter. But if you look at it, the past is just a chapter, not the whole book. And
yeah,
that's how I'm looking at change. That's my big mantra. The past is just a chapter, not the whole book. And as you say, you need that support, getting
yeah.
involved with a support group, supporting each other, staying in touch virtually, staying connected is so important. Like listening to podcasts like this, listening to people that have been through journeys. And nobody's life is easy. Life is not, but it doesn't have to be difficult,
Oh,
but
right.
having
Yeah.
those tools in the toolkit. And I'm not an expert like on death and dying, but I've just had a lot of loss, because when C had his accident and the subsequent fallout from that, I lost a spouse, but it was losing a spouse without a death, because he changed, right? And we couldn't go on. But I don't like to focus on that. I really, for me, what I like to focus on is the
Is
moving
a,
forward part.
yeah. Well, but I think going through those losses make the next chapter and every subsequent chapter thereafter, like it's really more meaningful because of the gratitude, because of
Absolutely.
you understand life is, and how you want to go forth and like do the things when we realize that we are, you know, we're not all gonna last forever, right? We're not
Nope.
robots. I mean, there's really like a understanding the fragility of life, and like being able to use gratitude and acceptance and looking at change from a whole different perspective outside in.
Yeah.
OMG, because I even plan change, I'll tell you, plan change can be just as difficult. When we moved into our home, I said, we got in here and into our house, I said, I'm never moving again. I don't care if we can afford a bigger house. Like, I am never moving again. If there's the whole mortgage process, and then like then packing and the moving and the unpacking and the getting familiar, like I'm like,
Yeah.
that's planned good change. And I
That's quite a good change.
struggled so bad with it. I'm like, no, if you want me to move, you're gonna have to hire people to go through the whole
Yeah.
for me.
Exactly. Get a professional. Get a professional. No, you're right. And I'm glad that you brought that up, because that's a great segue, because oftentimes when something unexpected happens, like a divorce or trauma, sudden death of a partner or a family member, and or an addiction of some sort, or you suddenly lose your job, which a lot of people are, a lot of people are having to work differently. People, again, they tend to get stuck. They get stuck because of the label that we put on stuff, like I'm a widower, I'm unemployed, I'm an addict, I'm, whatever. And it's important to try and stay away from that, because if we stay away from that, then we can move forward and we can start writing a new chapter, right? If we and look at our life more intentionally, as you talk about, and start to really choose. If you choose happiness, I believe that we don't find happiness, that we create it. And one of the reasons I believe that is because of the journey I've been on. And I've learned firsthand through a lot of tough stuff that, rapid, unexpected change can happen, but you can also find joy and happiness afterwards if you allow it. First of all, the acceptance and the OMG is important, but also trying to really help yourself. And I guess this is where the self-love comes in. And you're the expert on this. I'm not. But it's like, I'm worthy of happiness. I don't have I don't have to be stuck. It's my choice to move forward, not backward. And it takes time for that to happen. You do, everybody's process is different.
Yeah.
But doing things like visualization, for example, I talk about that. I've got the OMG takeaways in Butter Side Up, like some actual real, this is what you can do. Now, the thing about visualization, some people call it manifesting. I don't like that word. But visualization for me is really intentionally thinking about, what do I want to happen in my life?
Yeah.
Do I want new friends? Obviously I had to have a new career. I lost my career. I lost everything. I pretty much lost everything. In the span of 12 months. And, and it was funny. One of the reviewers who reviewed Butter Side Up, he gave me a great review. And his first line was, from a lady that had nowhere to go but up. And you know what? He was right. I had nowhere to go but up. But that was a conscious choice that I made. And it took work. So envisioning what's next is sometimes hard because of those labels, but we can do that. And if you think about it, I use the example in the book, Olympic athletes and professional athletes do this all the time.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
They do it all the time. They think about, okay, it's the long game. It's the end goal. You visualize, what do I want? Do I want a new partner? Do I want to have some new friends? Doing joyful things that make you happy, are some ways that we can, getting into new routines and rituals. These are some ways we can visualize things. And for some people, seeing is believing. And you can use tools such as vision boards. I call it Vision 101. And, really honing in on what you want and how you want it to be. But if you think of it, it's really getting away from fear, because children, as you know, are great at imagination. So your imagination is really just a dress rehearsal for what comes next. That's what visualization is. It's your imagination, right? Yeah. And think about it. I mean, I'm sure there's tons of women listening like you and me that are parents now. Like, this is why I used to teach kindergarten. And, how often did I have to tell kids, well, we don't run in front of cars. We teach safety, you know, or we do this because, you might hurt yourself. The reason you have to tell your kids that is because they believe they can do anything, right?
Well,
so you tell them, nothing's off the table, right? Yeah. So it's getting back to that more playful, way of thinking. But so those are some of the things that I really wanted to share today is sort of visualizing how to do that. Do you want me to share some of the tips that I shared in Butter Side Up?
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely.
So I call it Vision 101. So first of all, taking a step back, obviously the acceptance and, accepting that change has happened and accepting that you don't want to be where you are is really the first step. The outside in thinking part is looking at the big picture and really taking stock of your life and saying, what do I like? What don't I like? are some things that I've got going for me right now? What are the strengths? And maybe what are some things that I need some help with? Maybe I need some support. Maybe I need some professional help. Maybe I need
Yeah.
help from friends and family. Maybe I have to ask help from a professional organization. I always like the Salvation Army. They do great work. And churches out there, if you member of a church or community organization or your employer, getting that support system in place. But also thinking about taking stock of your life is really thinking about the areas of your life that you want to change. Is it your career? Did you lose your job? For many people during COVID, they are going to have a career change. They are going to be maybe working differently or doing something different than they didn't imagine. Now, some people, when they lose their job, they're going to go, oh my gosh, what's next? However, if you look at it as a new opportunity to do something else, then of course you bring a whole new perspective to it as well. And I mean, we all have to put food on the table. But for example, I would have never written this book if all this didn't happen.
Right.
I didn't sit back, I'm 54 years old. I didn't sit back and say, geez, I think I'd like to write a book someday. Who knew?
The goal list.
I didn't know. So it's something great. So think about the different areas of your life that you'd like to see change in. Is it your relationships? Is it your career? Is it your finances? Is it your home? Is it your social life? Is it your spirituality? Is it your personal growth? For example, if you're on your own right now with COVID, which many of us are, we don't have that social interaction. It's important to stay connected. If you want to bring a bit more brightness to your life, is there a neighborhood? Can you organize a neighborhood walking group? Can you join a meetup group virtually? Can you have FaceTimes with your friends and family? Can you have virtually, I'll call them family dinners. That's what I did for my family.
I love that.
Family are friends that you choose that aren't your family. So I invited my family to join me for dinner on my birthday. And we had a great time, and I said, eat whatever you want, drink whatever you want, wear whatever you want, show up on my Zoom, and here we go. So thinking more creatively, looking at different areas of your life that you want to change. Also handwriting those goals on a piece of paper, organizing them, what do I want to change? And understanding each area doesn't have to be covered in the same detail. And you can't do everything all at once, right?
Right.
So, I mean, you have experience with this. For example, when you were going through your journey, what was the very first thing you knew you had to change?
Well, I had to quit drinking. It was the first. I just had to not pick up a drink. So that was my focus. I mean, I think I focused on that for an entire year.
So did you focus on other things though, so you wouldn't do that? Like, did you say, okay, I've got to get busy. I've got to keep busy. I've got to get a support person. Did you actively join AA? Those kinds of things.
Right. Yeah. No, I wouldn't be here without a support system. Yeah. I joined AA. I have a sponsor, still the same sponsor 9 years later. I made friends, met my husband through my sponsor, and my whole life was living with a support system of people who lived life sober and didn't need substances or alcohol to numb out life.
Yeah.
What's interesting is, I lost my train of thought. You were saying like the support systems with people, and when I think people don't understand the power of support systems.
Yes.
And when you say hello to new situations, new people, new things to help you, the saying goodbye to the past can be painful stuff. I mean, there were 2 friends I had to let go of to quit drinking, and it was harder than my divorce, quite frankly, to let them go and to move into my new phase, but it was what was best for me. And I think the acceptance, once I accepted that, you are the product of the 5 people you spend the most time with. And, like that, it was making a difference. And if I'm around people who are looking at health, they're looking at gratitude, they're looking at acceptance, they're looking at, one day at a time and living life on life's terms, then I need to be with those people and immerse myself in that group of people and find a home there.
Exactly. You know what? And well said. My mother had my mom is very funny. And she always said to me, when I was younger, Jane, if you want to find out who your true friends are, have a crisis. And she's right.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Have a
Absolutely.
crisis. I had 3 of them, right? And, had some very, very dear, uh, wonderful friends supporting me. And then there was people that they just, the situation probably was too scary for them. And that's what happens sometimes.
Oh, yeah.
Is when scary stuff happens and people, we tend to be fear-based thinkers than, positive thinkers. Sometimes it's just too much for people, but the universe, I would say rejection is protection, right? So
Yep. I like that. Yeah, for sure.
that guy that didn't call you back, or that friend that wasn't there, or that's a sign, right? Like, it's a sign. Okay, maybe I need to choose something different. But also, so writing down your goals, looking at different areas, handwriting them, also understanding obviously that you can't do everything all at once and you need a support system. That's very, very important. And finding it, we talked about a few ideas to find it, and I'm sure you've got more. But also, I really believe in using affirmations, to do that. Louise Hay, she's one of my favorites. In fact, I love her stuff. She was really the guru of affirmations and thinking positively. And I believe we are what we believe. So saying stuff like, I'm choosing to think of this situation more positively. I'm very grateful that today I didn't have a drink, or I'm very grateful today that I'm healthy and I'm safe, or I'm very grateful that I have wonderful new friends, or I'm very grateful that I have a roof over my head, those
Yep.
types of things. Choosing to think about situations more positively. I've got, examples in my book, but there's tons on the internet. You just have to Google affirmations. So developing those new routines and rituals that help you take care of you, and help, you be your own best friend, right? Sometimes
Yeah.
that best friend isn't there. So, I get up every morning and Bob Baker and all those positivity, Louise Hay, I love that stuff. Do I listen to it for hours on end? No, absolutely not. But I always start my day. I meditate a little bit. Again, I don't do it for a long time, but I think about what I'm grateful for. I also do that at the end of each evening, and before I go to bed, because not only when we get up is it important to try and be positive and be grateful for things, it's at night, because our subconscious mind, we can get up in our own heads when
Yeah.
during our sleep hours. There's also research on that. So just developing routines and rituals that make you feel good about you, and being kind to yourself and being kind to others is also important, but also letting your creativity shine. Like, if seeing is believing, I know a lot of people that have done this, and they say it works. They get a vision board, like a big, Bristol board or piece of paper, like a collage, and putting down, okay, if you want to sell your house, put a picture of your house there and put a sold sign on it. You want to learn how to play a new instrument? Put a picture of yourself playing the clarinet or the piano. You want to ski more. You want to get a new job. You want to sell a bestseller. In my head, Butter Side Up has always got a 5-star review on Amazon. Is that going to happen all the time? No. But if I get, I've been very blessed to get very, very positive reviews about the book, but I can't please everybody. That wouldn't be realistic.
Well, right. I mean,
Yeah.
you're not sex or pizza, so it's pretty.
There you go. But again, being creative and just speaking, to yourself positively, being kind and gentle. Just say, you know what? I'm awesome. Look at what giving yourself an attaboy or an attagirl note every day. These are just, I got through today, right? Like, wow, I'm talking to Brooke Collins. Look at me. Like 2 years ago, I didn't know what I was doing. I wasn't butter side up. I was butter side down. Look at me now. So, those kinds of things, that positive self-talk. And I think that's what I like about you is you're demystifying the self-love, because I think a lot of people think self-love is really narcissism. It couldn't be farther from the truth. It's just being kind to yourself and celebrating your successes, that kind of thing. So, thinking about living intentionally, what do I want? What areas of my life do I want to change? Understanding they don't have to be covered in the detail, trying to stay away from the labels, creating your vision board, if that helps,
Yep.
personalizing it with the affirmations, setting goals for yourself, getting some help with that, reading up on stuff, and letting your creativity shine is really sort of how I did it and move forward. And also with a lot of gratitude, because once you start living intentionally, you're very careful about what you let in or you don't let into your life. That's
Yeah, I love that. That's hit the nail on the head right there. And I think a lot of people miss that
yeah,
in looking for self-love or self-acceptance. They miss the intentionality of living that way. When you do that and you focus on the gratitude and you focus on what it is you want and what you're going to allow,
mhm.
great things happen. I mean, doors open and change happens in a way that you like put it on your vision board and blam, like it's a year later and you're like, it supersedes even what you had on your vision board. So
Exactly.
I think, people definitely miss that because they like to be stuck with the label. I think that you made a valid point with the label. And being comfortable with that label or believing that label, because some of us are labeled things that we're not, and we believe it. We
Exactly.
said it one day on the playground in 5th grade, and
That's right.
our whole life believing that it was true from some 10-year-old that was just being, mean as a 10-year-old.
Yeah.
So I think that, visualizations help a lot. That's why I did the affirmations too. I have a 21-day confidence challenge that has 21 days of
Oh,
affirmation
wow.
your email every day and go through, and there's a little audio glow up tip from me, because people don't understand the power that has just, and it's literally 30 seconds a day. I am worthy. I am deserve love. I deserve happiness. I deserve joy, or, whatever the day brings, whatever affirmations are on there, but it makes such a big impact for something so small that it's so small to do every day. And yet that affirmations have had the biggest impact on my life, in all honesty.
Me too. I mean, I've had people in my life, obviously, that have come along, motivational speakers and obviously quotes and stuff. But I think it is that self-talk that, yes, I can do this. I got this. And I'm not perfect, but you know what? I'm going to get through today, one day at a time. And tomorrow's going to be, tomorrow can be better. And I think believing, you really got to believe it. It's like the book, I had lots of hints of encouragement along the way. I talk about this in Butter Side Up. It's like some funny stuff. Like you can tell, I mean, we haven't known each other, we talked maybe once briefly before this podcast. I don't take myself too seriously. I mean, really trying to have a sense of humor. I know it's difficult during a time of COVID, but that's what I write about in Butter Side Up. Like I was in a hospital. I saw some kooky things.
Oh
And
yeah.
in order to make sense of it, I had to make light of it. Like, you've been in the hospital too long when, right?
Yeah.
And, that kind of stuff, like trying to, not take yourself too seriously, have a sense of humor, surrounding yourself with those people that bring you joy, listening to comedy, reading light, bright stuff, surrounding yourself, making your home your sanctuary now with COVID.
Yeah,
There's all kinds
absolutely.
of different ways we can do that. But really, that's what did it for me finally, was every day just saying, you know what? I can do this. I know because I believed in myself. Who would have thought that a gal that had a head injury, that couldn't talk, that couldn't hear, that lost her partner and lost her best friend in 12 months, could take a bunch of emails and a couple of travel blogs that I wrote when I took some time away, and write a book and finish it in 9 months and get it published and launched? That was me believing in me.
Incredible.
I'm not trying to, I just say I'm an ordinary person. I've just survived some extraordinary things. And I believe there's a lot of other stories out there of people that have done some extraordinary things. So I'm so very, very grateful to be here today to share my story and try and help other people along with their journey. Because I really admire you. I think you're one of the bravest people I've ever met.
Oh, thanks.
Yeah. No, you are. I'm not buttering you up. You're butter side up. And you know what? I'm sure that wasn't easy to overcome a lot of things, but I'm just so very, very grateful to be here and speak to your listeners. And just, I can't wait. I can't wait to see what comes next.
Yeah, I can't wait to see what comes next with you either. So everyone, if you're on YouTube, I'm showing a copy of the book side up because I have one and I've read it and it is awesome. And, heading to your website, My Super Awesome Life too, there's some great tips and some great, inspirational kind of ways to get into an awesome mindset, which I love. Anything, like that, I am just a big fan of. So I am glad that our paths crossed. I think that you are doing a lot of good in the world. And I think people need your message more than ever today with COVID and everything that's going on. So I'm grateful that you went through those extraordinary things so that you could become who you are today.
Oh, you're gonna make me cry. I'm grateful too. You know what? I'm very grateful on Butter Side Up today, and I'm looking forward. I think this is going to air on International Women's Day. I think.
Yes.
the
Yep, it
podcast.
will.
And I'm just a big shout out to all the great girls out there, all the girl bosses like you and me who are out there trying to make a difference, and all the moms and all the women in our life that have made our lives truly extraordinary. So thank you so much. It's been a pleasure.
Yeah, thank you for coming on. And everyone, tune in next week. Today's International Women's Day. So if you're in the States, just celebrate that we have a woman as a vice president finally for the first time in history. That's a pretty big deal. And celebrate yourself for the amazing things that women do every day. Little things add up to amazing experiences, and helping people along the way is what it's all about. So I hope wherever you are in the world that you take a little time to enjoy yourself and celebrate who you are as a woman. So with that, have a good week, guys. I'll see you next week. Thanks, Jane. Thanks for coming.
Thanks, Brooke. Stay super awesome.
Thank you for listening to the Desperately Seeking Self podcast. Did you love this episode? Then head on over to iTunes to subscribe, rate, and leave a review. It's very much appreciated. Also check out innovativecoachbrooke.com to join in on the conversation, access show notes, and discover all the awesome free content. And don't forget to join us next week for another episode. Thanks for tuning in.